I'm in the North Bay, so it's like an hour and a half north.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Well,
Where are
thank
you?
you. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, the cradle of jazz.
Oh, sweet. Nice.
So thanks for reaching out. It's great to connect. I appreciate you taking a minute out.
Yeah, thanks for getting back to me so quickly.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love your background. I love your history, your music. And I want to begin before we get into the latest album by asking
Yeah.
you, 4 years ago, this pandemic started. It really did its thing on the musicians in the world. We didn't know where it was going to go. How did you survive it? How did you get through it? How did it change you?
It was one of the best times creatively for me because it was just going crazy, right? And
Yeah.
I have two kids and now they're at home homeschooling. So it really forced me to be creative. I mean, at one point I was like recording a song in the laundry room in the crawl space of the house where it was quiet and cool in the summer months. So there was a lot of, yeah, there was fodder for that. But it also really opened up many more possibilities than I had anticipated because then I started switching over to doing Zoom presentations. And I'm also a physician, so I would do presentations slash performances about health awareness and but including musical performance. So I got to play for audiences all around the world from the ease of my studio at home.
Excellent. So, talk to me a little bit about the latest album. Was this a part of living through COVID? Talk to me a little bit about the artistic forces that made it what it is.
I would say, as an immigrant, I was born in London, moved to the States when I was 10. And I remember the very first time going to Japan. I was a medical exchange student and fell in love with the country there. And it was the culture, the people, the food, the beauty, the simplicity of or minimalism. And I said to myself at that time, one day I have to come back and live here part time. I don't know how that would happen or how that would materialize. And 20 years later, it was through work, my medical work. I was asked to work overseas, and Japan was one of the first places. Right after the shutdown ended in Japan, I went there in 2022. I literally Googled like music venues in that area and just started to explore and meet people and check out shows. And that led to me getting connected to musicians and people and recording my album there. And it's titled Kaeru, which means to return home. And that album really came from spending time there and really finding a sense of peace and feeling that I could be my most authentic self there. And it was a realization that home is not necessarily geographical, but it's also coming home to oneself.
Yeah.
And that's what my experience has been like while being in Japan. And I completed my album there and recorded with some amazing artists.
I
So it
know
was
that,
synchronicity. Go
I
ahead.
know that feeling. I
Mm,
grew up, my dad was full-blooded Italian from New York, and I heard about the history and I knew all about it and the ancestors. Well, I had a pen pal in high school and I went to Italy and she was just south of Florence in a little town. Well, one day I decided to go to Rome, and Rome to this day is just totally blew me away. It's more than just this magnanimous place of history on earth. There was
mm,
something that impelled me. And when I hear you talk about Japan, there's almost this kind of spiritual level of awakening. There's this
yes.
thing, your compass needle just moves in a different way, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's great. And
Yes.
I'm I love sushi. I could eat sushi every day for the rest of my life, just at a minimum. I could just take in fish like you don't even know. And they love jazz. They worship.
I know.
And I have asked the question to people that have either been Japanese or been close, and I finally got an answer as to why the Japanese revere jazz as much as they do. And it's because their level of
Wow.
worshiping deities is a different deal. So, so that grabbing onto
Mhm.
jazz musicians is almost kind of like their level of like grabbing onto deities. Is that correct? Kind of?
Mm, I have not heard that before. I will now explore that
Yeah.
though. That's an interesting concept.
because they're fanatical. They got Sharpies and LPs. They're doing things. They're quiet at shows, I hear. I mean, I've never experienced it, but everything I hear about it, I'm like, wait, did an alien culture come down into Japan and
Right.
populate it with this humanity that I don't know of? It's weird.
There is a strong reverence for jazz music and even what they call black music.
Yeah,
Um, there is and there's some amazing artists, technically wise, it's just incredible
yeah,
and meticulous.
yeah.
When I recorded the album, I was just going to do an EP, a few songs, in my first trip, which was about a week. And I met with the drummer, a shamisen player, and the artist who plays the Mongolian kur, and they asked me, where are the charts? I was like, I don't have any charts. And I was like, I just want you to play from the heart. And it was foreign to them at first and uncomfortable. But I said, you got this.
Yeah.
And they improvised, and it was beautiful. The first few takes, each time was beautiful. And that actually propelled me to go back, like I think a month later, and make it into a full album and
Wow.
record more songs. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, how did this journey begin? I know originally from London, Japan, and San Francisco is a part of your geographical timeline. So, take me back to the beginnings. How did
Yeah.
this love of music and jazz become you?
Right. Don't forget New York.
All right, I'm sorry. Got to put that in
That's
there.
okay. I got a joint New York connection here. Um, Well, our parents were musicians, so our mom used to play piano and sung and played the organ in church. So lessons started with her when I was 4, but it's classical music. And we grew up listening to reggae. Our parents were Jamaican. Grew up to reggae, rock, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, those folks, but never jazz.
Yeah.
So when I went to college and I was pre-med, and it was I think last year or semester before I graduated, I had the courage to audition for the jazz ensemble. And I was terrified. It was a tough class, but I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I remember being at the audition and they hand out the charts. I was like, I couldn't read anything. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So I just fudged it and improvised the whole way. I didn't get the piano part, but they put me in on vibes. And so because I didn't know how to read, G seventh diminished minor or B flat. I didn't know what those notes were. I played them, but I didn't know I didn't understand the notation. But that was my foray into jazz. And my professor who run that class, his name was Carlton Hester, he pulled in all these amazing artists. We played with Dr. Donald Byrd, Steve
Wow.
Turre, and at the time, I didn't know who they were. Now I'm like, oh my God, that was an honor.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to at least straight ahead or sort of traditional jazz. And interestingly, my circle is looped back around to my professor. I just did a performance with him and his group a few months ago. So we're now connected 20 plus years ago and have remained in touch now as musical colleagues. So it's pretty cool. But how did I get into music? That was never part of my life plan. Like I said, I knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was 5, and that was it. And I went to medical school, residency, and then life just changed in 2011. I just had our second daughter, and 2 weeks after her birth, I found out that my mom had cancer. And so the next 6 months, I was flying between California and New York with my daughter to help take care of her. And so she passed away after 6 months. And I'll never forget, we were planning her memorial at home in New York, the house we grew up in. And it was just stressful. It was really too much. We took a break. And my dad decided to get out he had his drums. My brother had his double bass. My sister had her violin. And I found my old keyboard. And we just started to jam. And that was the first time we'd ever played together as a family. We're all
Wow.
musicians.
Yeah.
And we jammed for like 2 hours, and it was the most cathartic thing. And after that, I was like, I'm going to do music. And
Wow.
that's how it started.
That's wonderful. So, what is it that you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What motivates you?
That's a great question. It's a hard field.
Yes.
It's not like being a doctor. Like you know how to get to medical school. There's a route. There's
Hmm.
steps to follow, tests to take. Blah blah blah. You do it. You ace it. Boom. You're in. But this whole medical, I mean, this musical field,
Yeah.
it's hard to navigate. It really is. But that's also the fun part of it. But I think the bottom line is just the healing aspect of it. You know, when you're stressed, when you're tired, when you're happy, you sit down at the piano and you just play, and hopefully, not always, but you get into the zone and you come out of that feeling refreshed, inspired, energized. It's just this source that you're plugging into that allows you to move on and to cope and to heal. That's what gets me going. And if I can share that with others, and someone else feels that way, hey, it's a beautiful feeling.
So at the end of the day,
Mm,
there's this love of jazz that you have.
mm.
Why do you love jazz?
It's not just jazz. You know, I was the last few months I've been listening to some old school Japanese gospel music on internet radio.
Wow.
And I never grew up on gospel. And it's so soothing. It's like a lullaby. And just, I sat down on the piano, just playing some of it. And then I segued into some funky jazz. And then I was playing a little classical. And then I started playing ragtime, which has always scared me, but I was just experimenting. And they all fit. And then I ended on a blues note. And that's when it hit me. All the jazz is ragtime, is
Yeah.
funk, is classical. It's one. And 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 that's what I enjoy about it,
Yeah.
and the freedom of it, if you can get out of your mind and let the freedom take you over.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I'll have to listen to that. I remember years ago, an old truck driver by the name of Bing said, "You have to listen to Elvis sing gospel. You've never heard anything like it." And I'm not a big Elvis guy, but there's a
Yeah.
spirituality, there's a vigor. It goes to his roots that
Mm.
just comes out. And I think that's the thing. You don't go into gospel music because you want to be an international superstar on stage. You go into
Right.
gospel because you're moved by a spirit. And when that's done the right way, it should
By the ma-
overflow the cup pretty
that's
good.
right. Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's aptly said. Yeah. Lovely.
so let me ask you this. If you could get into a
Mm.
time machine and go back into the history of jazz and see one show live, where are you going?
Oh, Mary Lou Williams.
Oh yeah. She had a
Any of
lot.
her shows.
Her Kansas City history is pretty magnanimous. She really grew up here.
She's incredible.
Yeah, I know. I don't think people realize it. Like
No,
they
even to
don't.
this day.
I mean, that album, A History of Jazz that she did,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's crazy.
It's phenomenal. I mean, she plays as if she is, I mean, she does, but like two separate hands. But then there's the phrasings, the space that she leaves between notes, the melodies, uh, the yeah. She lets the music move and breathe at the same time, and she's incredibly gifted.
If
I would have loved to have seen her.
yeah, I mean, and that's one of the reasons why I'm asking it, coming from Kansas City in the home of
Yeah,
Charlie Parker. I mean, if we didn't have
right.
all these underpinnings and weird things about gender and whatnot, she would be bigger than Charlie
Right.
Parker easily.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it
yeah,
just would have
yeah.
happened.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Right, right, right.
So, so
She was
at the end
phenomenal.
of the day, everyone has a
Mm,
perception of you, family,
mm,
friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your
mm.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That was supposed to be the topic of my meditation today, actually.
We're just giving you a jump start.
Wow. Who do I think I am? I think I'm someone who has recently embraced what I've always known, which is to be able to appreciate and indulge in all that interests me, and that being multifaceted is more than okay. It's a beautiful gift. And it's taken a while to really come to terms with that and understand that and be okay with that, because society and people want to kind of put you in one box and kind of keep you there. But I've learned to give myself permission to not limit myself. And I hope that through what I do and how I can also help create a space where I can give permission to others for them to do that for themselves too.
So well said. So if anyone wants to pick up the new album, see you live, anything else that you've done, anything in your world, where can they go?
www.ekishola.com. So EKISHOLA.com. Everything is on there. Connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, send me an email, say hi. That's the best place.
Well, I am so glad we connected, Eki. Thank you so much for the music. Thank you for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, it has.
It.
You bet.